about that. All right.
Right in the neck.
All right, I got all this meeting in at 5:32 p.m. All right, so first thing, the approval of the agenda. All right, so here's the agenda. What we got is, starting off, we have we have introductions. Sorry, the mouse is acting crazy. But we have Senator introductions, so we're going to have four of them introduce themselves because we have a lot of new faces. Then we're going to do updates. So that includes SGC updates, undergraduate council, USC, library renewal committee, and then initiative updates from everybody. And then we're going to go into new business. So we have joint legislation in 2 SLs, and then we're going to review the budget after that. That'll be at 6:40. And then we have Brandon's going to do something with SGC expectations, and then we're going to do a Green Dot training announcement. Now, I know a lot of people in this room are here for the budget, so I'd like to make an amendment to move that to the beginning of the new business after updates. Second.
I can't see you. Oh.
All right, so let's have a vote. So all senators in favor? All opposed? All right, move that up. Then, yeah, so all these time slots, they're just going to be, the 6:10 applies to the budget, and then this applies to the budget, 6:15 to this. It's kind of out of order right now. Sorry about that. All right, I'm going to fix this, but why don't we go into introductions? So, my name's Jared. I'm the Speaker of the Senate, and let's go to the right, away from Mary.
Hello, my name is Mary Magalatoga. I'm a senator. Oh, my pronouns are she, her, and hers.
My name is Brandon Moon, the Assistant Speaker for Senate. I use he, him pronouns.
Keith Martinez-Jones, Assistant Director for Leadership and Governance. I serve as the SGA Advisor and I use he, her pronouns.
Victor Shaw, I'm Managing Editor at Retriever, and I use he, his.
Zach McCord, Digital Managing Editor and Interim Business Assistant at the Retriever, and I use he, him pronouns.
Shirley Arbutus, Editor-in-Chief of the Retriever, she, her.
Allison Kennedy, a Senior Staff Photographer at the Retriever, he, and his.
I'm Arabi Kaba, I'm the Secretary, she, her pronouns.
I'm Sean. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm FYA.
Yasmin Carter, Senator, she, her, hers.
Soy Lemos, First Year Ambassador, I use he, his.
Sabri Karat, I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the FYI.
I'm Alan, I'm the President of SGA, and I use he, his.
Brenda, I'm the Executive Vice President, I use she, her pronouns. Francis, I'm a senator, I use she, her pronouns.
Sam Sawyer, I'm the Senator, he, him pronouns.
I'm Patrick. I'm Senator. He, him pronouns.
Kalashi, I'm a Senator, she, her pronouns.
I'm a boy, I'm a Senate, wait, I'm an FYA, and I use she, her.
All right, great. So I didn't get very far with the update, but
Wait, we have one more person. Oh, why don't you introduce yourself?
Coordinator of Public Relations.
yeah, that's great. All right. Thank you guys. So, all right, let's leave that for now. But next, we're going to go into senator updates. So, welcome everyone to Senate. So first is undergraduate council. So, who's on undergraduate council? Patrick?
Yeah. So
basic stuff. Undergraduate council never has much report because it's just kind of a laundry list that we approve. Items we did approve a new program, or a new course for pre-nursing students. Because they're only here for 2 years, it's going to make it a little bit easier for them to be able to get the credits they need. I wasn't understanding all of it, but they did ask me for my input, and I did a voice that I was very supportive of that idea. Because I know a lot of pre-nursing students who would appreciate such a class. There are also going to be some program reviews that are going to be coming down of like whole majors. So I'll have more to report maybe next week. But it was good stuff. Very, very fun committee. Awesome. Does anybody have any questions? Appreciate it. Yes, sir.
With the undergraduate council, can you explain what that is?
Yeah, absolutely. It's sort of an interesting name because it is kind of vague. The undergraduate council that I sit on, every week we will have like a department will send us course changes, new classes to approve, all kinds of different stuff, and we review it. It's a council made up of a bunch of different department heads, faculty senate reps, me, and then somebody from the provost's office, and we all kind of sit and we discuss why these changes may be beneficial, why they're not beneficial, and how they can be better suited for like students. So like the new class we just approved, that was brought to us by the bio department. They said we'd like to have this before it can go to the provost. It has to be approved by that council. It's sort of like a stopgap to make sure nothing arbitrary or repetitive gets put into the provost's like records of courses. It's a good measure to kind of keep everything sorted well, which is exciting.
Like, is any senator like assigned to that, or like how does it go? Like, do you were assigned to that?
Yeah, I've been assigned to that for the past two, like last semester and also this semester. And it's definitely, I mean, if you're interested, I'm sure you're welcome. I don't think it's a closed council. I'm sure it's very interesting. We talked a lot about the like education policy and like how actually when the gym requirement changes came down, we were kind of on the forefront of that. We were kind of some of the first to know, to try to discuss like how to get around it, because what we deal with is like course requirements and how it all fits together for the undergraduate student body. So like last semester we spent a lot of time trying to figure out how that was going to go. And it's good because like it was nice that I was able to be there and kind of answer their questions for that. So yeah, I can connect offline if you're interested.
What time are meetings?
I stick around afterwards. I don't want to take up the body's time, but we'll talk offline. Any other questions? All right, great. So next is the University Steering Committee. So I was at the University Steering Committee, so I'll present that. So just a couple things. So with health and counseling on campus, they are doing right now in the works is a Do It initiative in which they're trying to expand counseling resources for students. So that would include, it's supposed to be an online program. It's called CBT Care, I think. And essentially it has online modules in which students can then walk through, like meditations that they can go through that will help them with any sort of mental disorders as a first step before potentially moving into counseling, right? So because their idea is to treat it with incremental steps. So first they start small, and then they slowly move toward more impactful treatments if the smaller steps aren't working. So that would be one of like the first initial steps, and it's meant to reach out to a lot of different students. I don't have a time frame on when that's going to be done though, but it's in the works. They mentioned that they're going to have a focus on, or that that they're also working on spreading out the delivery of counseling services to more students as one of their main goals, because there's a couple of different groups that are underrepresented as far as the utilization of the counseling services. So the Retriever Courage update was that they had one info gathering session, but the attendance was not as big as they wanted. They expected about 300 people, and instead only about 30 people showed up for the info gathering session. So they're having another one on March 1st, and that's going to be during free hour, so 12 to 1. Also, all gender restrooms, they're doing an initiative with all gender restrooms, or not necessarily an initiative, but in order to make all gender restrooms more accessible on campus, what they're doing is that right now, this is the first steps on any floor that has more than one bathroom. So that'd be like 2 sets of male and female bathrooms. One of those bathrooms is going to be converted into an all gender restroom. So that's the first step. And it's going to be piloted in ITE because on every floor in ITE they have 2 sets of restrooms. So and that's most of the big stuff. Does anyone have any questions? Yep.
What is the info session?
So Retriever Courage is all about campus response to the sexual abuse that happened last semester. And basically they brought in a couple of people who they have specifically designated to fixing that. And the whole initiative has been called Retriever Courage. So those info sessions are basically to talk to campus and figure out what is campus saying, where the problem is, and how can we go about, what are some ideas we can go about resolving that.
It's not talking to campus, they're actually speaking to like consultants who are, so consultants and outside contractors. What are specific, or did they say that they were not providing specific dates for the implementation of CBT care, or they just don't know?
They just don't know yet.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions? All right, cool. Next is Library Renewal Committee. Yes. Huh? Oh, you don't know yet. Okay. All right. All right. So now, Senate initiative updates. Okay. So remember, keep it brief. Just like one sentence of what you did this week, or if you didn't do anything, that's okay. Just let me know. And then also one sentence of like your next step for the following week. Okay. Start with Miriam.
So the initiative that I'm working on is reducing the STEM stigma at UMBC. Last week's plan was to get onto Kaylee Norco's calendar through David introducing us, but he didn't do that. Or not that he didn't do that, but she's like very busy, so I couldn't meet with her. But me, Francis, and Roy did like hash out like the general framework of the initiative. So next step would be to actually get on her calendar and meet with her. And it looks like she has a free spot, free hour Wednesday, but Sis is busy, so
okay. So you guys hashed out that plan and try to get on the calendar. Okay. Great. All right. Brandon.
So I met with University Health Services and talked about finding out what their data and demographics are for people using their services, and ways that we can support each other, building a relationship moving forward. I'd like to meet with OCSS more. I think we have to know them, and then I also want to meet with athletics moving forward.
Is that next week? Next week, athletics?
Mine is focus groups across campus, getting a more holistic view of
Focus groups
about so with as senators we have a lot of pull towards how the university can go, and I want to make sure that we have a solid foundation for making decisions. So I want to hear from you.
All right. Yes.
Alright, so 2 things happened in the 2 weeks since our last meeting. So I met with Dan Barnhart about the charging station implementing on campus, and so we came with the idea of doing a pilot station that will be funded by SGA, and we put our logo and stuff on it. And put it in front of CIC is what we're trying to get it at. So now he's in contact, getting in contact with some technology people that he knows, and we were also having facilities about it. And yeah, so trying to implement that as the first one to kind of be the pilot and to show that it works, and to then have it be funded by facilities or whomever else to be able to implement more of them. So then they could later be in like places like the library and what's that building that's taking up all the space? That place. Yeah, so yeah, trying to get technology resource that minimal to students across campus. But yeah, we're gonna try to get that done soon.
Okay. Next week?
Next week what?
What do you want to get done?
Next week? Oh, I'm not done yet. Not done yet.
Okay.
So, my other initiative that I was able to get some traction on in that meeting with Dan was about the mural project. Colin knows a bit about it from a meeting we had for, what was that? Yeah. What was the name of the thing? I don't know, some people meeting. So Colin's there. And so the idea is to have a mural to be able to boost school pride. And I didn't want it on someplace on Acro, so I could put across that view again with somebody in facilities, I can't remember her name, to contact her and talk about it and see what we can do. So hopefully I'll have a meeting scheduled with her by this week, if not meeting with her this week.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right. Francis.
So, as you know, and we created the framework, so that's also my update. And then in regards to the Senator initiative, I've been reviewing the framework. For those of you who don't know, Jerry and I have been passing different types of, I guess, applications around and getting the questions for not only what the senators, people who are applying to be senators, but what the senators themselves ask questions. And so I've been comparing that. Did you send me the binder?
The binder? Not yet.
Okay. And I've also been doing like outside research on like what is the ideal environment for hosting an election process, and like the feedback that the statistics that are already out there. And so yeah, I've just been gathering a lot of data basically.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, like one of the initiatives I have Francis on is just reworking how we do things in Senate so that it can be more efficient. Also, just more, I guess, like well, in previous semesters, Senate hasn't been, I mean, most friendly environment or the most productive environment. So we've been working just on internal Senate stuff to try and get us back on the right course to get things done. So she's been doing a great job leading that. Wait, what's your next week?
Okay, so next week I want to meet with Marion and then go again, and then once I have a look at the binder, I'll meet with you.
Okay.
So I reached out to the Retrievers Essentials Food Access Program about the campus-based pantry I want to establish. So I have a meeting scheduled with the team next week, February 28th from 2 to 3 p.m. And the program coordinator, Lauren Kataja, she said that anybody's welcome to come. So if anybody's interested in the initiative, they can come to the meeting as well.
What was the time you said?
2 to 3.
Oh, what was the date, sorry?
February 28th. And I think it's in Public Policy 115, so if anybody's interested. So that's the plan. I want to meet with her and get the ball rolling on the initiative.
Awesome.
115? Yeah, Pub 115.
Patrick. So we, the meeting times for us is set to, like, we're doing like a group FaceTime call on Sundays. Unfortunately, I was not able to be in on that this week. My SIM card is not working, so I don't have access to a FaceTime call, which is annoying. But next week, we're going to get back on that.
And that's what we do.
That is with, yeah, so that's members of SAC, Miriam, 2 other people.
SAC?
The Student Advisory Committee.
Okay.
Part of research, just kind of on that back end. I'm not, actually, I do want to kind of network with you on this as well. I'm not really sure where to go from here without kind of being on that call, so I might be like, figure something out there. But definitely we should, like, let's talk about it.
Yeah, we'll meet up.
So I could like follow up, or I forgot to speak on that. We're on a subcommittee for like bettering police relations on campus, and we had our first meeting on Sunday. We talked about first steps, and we have like we have a meeting scheduled with like a UMBC police affiliate. I don't know when it's scheduled for, but we also have a meeting.
Okay. When the meeting with the police officials, anybody welcome?
I don't know if it's like, I don't know the time, but it's,
Okay.
yeah, I'll let you know.
Cool. All right, we'll be up. And then to let you, so this is your first week. So, just, do you have your initiative? Like we talked about.
Yeah. Okay, so the initiative that I talked to you about was pretty much reducing the stigma between mental health and underrepresented communities, such as, like to be very specific, African American men. And I think I want to create possibly an event or a forum type of program or something. People come and sit down and talk about it. So I'm planning to meet with Bruce Herman, the Director of Health and Counseling next week. So that's my plan for this.
All right, cool. All right, guys. Thank you all. All right, so that concludes Senate initiative updates. So now, new business. So I know it says amended to budgetary policy, but we're going to start with the budget, which is going to be presented by Colin Sullivan, SGA President. So it's all you.
All right, 2 seconds. Are you using your computer or the?
So now, really thank you. So right. Yeah. That's why I have my computer.
All right. Hello, everyone. Hi. How are we doing? Living the dream? Okay. So I think, sorry, I'm taking notes so I can help with this process. Great. Okay. So it would be helpful for me if we began by everyone that's in the room could go around and say one word that you're thinking or feeling of what you know about the budget, your current perceptions on the budget, anything. What is the first word coming to your mind right this second? That would help me tremendously. Is there anyone that would particularly care to start? Go for it.
Frustrated.
I don't know.
That's fine. That's fine.
Aaron? Question?
Sure. Excited.
I don't know.
It's a lot.
Forward thinking.
Wow. Without a thing.
Confused. Processing.
Wow.
Complicated.
Frustrated.
Betrayed.
Intrigued.
Passive. Okay, that was very helpful for me. So I want to first talk about what process looks like for the budget. So tonight is proposal night. There's no legislation attached, meaning there's nothing to vote on tonight. It is just a conversation of where Carly and I are coming from. So tonight is I'm going to go through this PowerPoint. I'm going to explain it with some more words. And then afterwards, any and every question is on the table. My goal is that we work on a budget that we are all comfortable with. The budget reflects our values and it reflects what we actually care about as a student government and how we want to allocate the student activity fee. And there's a lot of different values that are going on that Carly and I worked on. So we're going to talk about that tonight. Then what I want to let you know is that once this is legislation and it's presented in front of the Senate with a bill attached to it, it is out of Carly and I's power, per se. So the Senate has the authority to increase or decrease specific line items. The Finance Board has the power to accept what the Senate is proposing because it will ultimately be joint legislation. But then as president, even if I get a passed joint legislation bill, I can approve it or not approve it at that time. Does that make sense? Are there any questions on the process? Yes.
So the proposal is essentially proposed by like the Finance Board and executive.
No, the proposal is from the president and the treasurer, who then submit it to Senate.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
You sure? Okay. Yeah.
So you, at the end of that process, you said that you make the proposal to the Finance Board can approve or reject it.
Yep.
And it goes to you.
Yep.
You can approve or reject it.
Yep.
If you reject it, just go back to the beginning.
It goes back to Senate.
Goes back to start. Okay.
Good question.
Thank you.
Yep.
The Finance Board rejects them, it goes back to Senate.
Yep.
So,
And again, Senate has the power to increase or decrease line items. Finance Board does not. Yes.
Why? I'm like,
Wait.
like, why is it that way? Why can't Finance Board, which seems to
That
apply the
is
main?
currently in our guiding documents. If you would like to write legislation to change our policies, I'd be more than happy to work with you on that, but that's not what's in our guiding docs right now. Any other questions about process? Okay, here we go. So this is what the FY20 budget will look like overall. So 28.1% of the budget will be going to student organization pot that's allocated by the Finance Board. 24.8% will be going to charter student organizations, which is the Retriever and Student Events Board. 21.2% is SGA administrative support. Those are non-negotiable funds, and we'll talk about that. 12.5% of the budget goes to SGA officer stipends. 6.8% goes to university partnerships and collaborations, and 6.5% will be going to internal SGA programs and operations. And I will be going over all of this a lot more in depth, obviously, in just a moment, but I wanted to give everyone a broad scale overview. Yes, Robbie?
I have a question. Right?
Yes.
So since this is a PowerPoint, everyone has access to it. How in, or maybe I should be asking Jared, how in depth do you want me to get in the minutes about this? Right?
Yeah, I think any questions and answers that pop up, maybe? No work, Robbie?
So I can enjoy it with you guys?
Yeah. Sure.
Awesome.
So if we look at all student organization support, that's 52.9% of our overall budget. So if we look at taking those percentages and then breaking them down to your student activity fee, that's what the dollar amount equals to. The student activity fee is on a different cycle than every other fee in the institution. So this Wednesday we have a public forum for proposed fee increases. Those will take effect for FY20. SGA is not pursuing a fee increase at the forum, and even if we proposed an increase at the forum, those increases would not take effect until FY21. So SGA is behind you? Is that right? Are we behind you or ahead of you? Ahead of you? Behind you.
Changes happen for us after changes happen to everyone else.
Yes.
So we're behind.
We're behind. Okay. We're behind 1 year than everyone else. Yes. So this is what it would break down as. So when Carly and I were writing the budget, we wanted to make sure that we knew why we were doing what we were doing. First one was obviously to maintain the cost of the student activity fee. We did not want to increase the student activity fee with anything that we were doing, or need to increase the student activity fee with anything that we were doing. We wanted to promote student organizations that create a vibrant campus life. We know how important student organizations are, and we want to make sure that we are committing to them. We want to encourage people to run for office and dedicate time to SGA by providing competitive wages. I'll talk a lot about that in a few minutes. Eliminate waste of internal SGA budgeting. We had a lot of line items that were significantly overinflated from previous administrations and have never been corrected. And we want to evaluate the use of student activity fee for institutional programs. And again, we'll talk all about this in just a second, but this is the big picture, why we were doing what we were doing. So let's go to charter organization support, starting with the Student Events Board. I have their FY19 budget. If anyone is interested in seeing their FY, and I have the Retrievers FY19 budget as well, so if anyone's interested in seeing those, I'm happy to share them. So the Student Events Board, their budget covers stipends, event costs, event materials, a lot of stuff. They actually get two sources of revenue. Their primary source is from the student activity fee, so allocation from SGA. And then their second source is revenue. They make money on some events, which they budget in appropriately. And we are maintaining the current levels of support for SEB for the contribution from the student activity fee. The Retriever, so their costs include stipend, printing costs, office materials, all sorts of fun stuff. They have revenue coming in for ads, which cuts down on some of the costs. There is a cut that I'm sure that people have seen. Previously, SGA has funded the Retriever at $60,000, and in the proposed budget, we are offering $30,000. And here's why. Charter student organizations have to have a reserve account. The reserve account is supposed to be 15 to 30% of your operating budget. So for SGA, if we have a $1.1 million operating budget, that means our reserve account should be in the neighborhood of 170 to 340. Follow me so far? We got some math going on. The Retriever's operating budget is about $100,000 this fiscal year. And for this fiscal year, we contributed $60,000 and they brought in $40,000 in ad revenue. So with that being said, the amount of reserves that the Retriever should have should be about $15,000 to $30,000, a 15 to 30% range. Good, healthy reserve account. The Retriever's reserve account as of last week was $135,000. So that is $100,000 over their target amounts. So effectively, SGA could fund $0 to the Retriever, and they could operate totally normally next year without any help at all from SGA because they're able to dip into their reserve account. It's not what we want to do because we believe in the Retriever. They do good things. They have been phenomenal this year compared to my freshman year. And this change does not reflect saying we hate the Retriever and we want them to go away. It's that their reserve account is 135% of their operating budget. And again, the goal is 15 to 30%. SEB is right in the money on that. I don't remember what it was. It was like right at 20% or so. I can pull exact numbers for you all. SGA ourselves, we're a little bit over. We're about 35% over our reserve, or like our reserve balance is 35% of our operating budget. So we have some work to do ourselves, but the Retriever is significantly over, which is why there's a reduction in funding them for next fiscal year. Any questions on that so far? Yeah, Jared.
So you have a plan to, as the reserve account balances, right? How do you plan to ensure that they get back to the 60,000 that they were initially at?
Right. So this is definitely a long-term challenge. The first step of this process will be to mitigate the Retriever's reserves account balance.
Okay.
I don't think I answered your question very well. You're more asking about like year 3, year 4, year 5.
Right.
Yeah. So I think that will be serious conversations between Student Affairs Business Services Center, Campus Life, SGA, and the Retriever Management to determine what's sustainable and what's realistic coming from SGA moving forward.
Okay.
Does that answer your question better? What am I missing?
It's just like, because administration of SGA meets relatively frequently, right? How do we ensure that it's fair for them? Because I mean, like you said, they do good work.
Yep.
So,
well, we're in the process currently of drafting an agreement between SGA and the Retriever, so that the administration just can't come in and be like, we're going to cut the Retriever's funding because we don't like them.
okay.
That agreement is in draft right now. Miriam was first, I think.
Appreciate it. Just really quickly, you went over the $30,000 was that going to?
We will cover that in just a minute.
You mentioned, I guess, like, talking to faculty, like facilitators, like faculty members and like student business services, like soliciting this like proposal.
What?
Is that what I heard? You talked about the Retriever and student business services, I guess, like facilitating this proposal.
No, I said I think for next moving forward to figure out how we mitigate this problem. I think it's a conversation between Campus Life, Student Affairs Business Services Center, and SGA, because we don't see the day-to-day monies of the in and out of the Retriever. That's Student Affairs Business Services Center, and Campus Life is still on top of, sorry, one voice in the way. Campus Life is still responsible for the Retriever's day-to-day activities. So having all 4 of us in the room having a conversation would make sense.
So we're all 4 of you in the room, actually.
Any other questions about this? Okay. All right, student organizations is the Finance Board allocation pot. Finance Board will be undergoing major reforms. We had a fantastic town hall today, which we will take a lot of feedback as well and continue to make changes to that. The goal is to provide the Finance Board more flexibility and make sure that we are funding more student organizations to create more fun events that more people want to go to and do more meaningful work. A merchandise fund and the student org marketing fund, we looked at how they were actually utilized. The reality is that a lot of orgs did not use the money during spring semester. There was a huge influx in fall semester, so those monies were never used to their fullest capacity. So what we did was we took the money that was actually used and we rolled it over into the Finance Board pot. Right now, that money has to be allocated by the treasurer. This is actually giving the Finance Board back more power from just one individual person in SGA. And Patrick, to answer your question that you asked earlier, the majority / all of the savings from the Retriever rolled over into the Finance Board pot. So this is an increase of $38,000, so from $275 to $313 to help with that. Yes, Miriam.
I was looking at the line items on the proposed on the budget, and like where did the excess $8,000 come from?
It's just everything kind of got shuffled around when it's difficult to say this exact money came from this line item, because that's not how Carly and I budgeted this year intentionally, because we had a lot of waste internal at SGA. What we did was we said these are the values and these are the priorities. Out of 100% budget, what percentage points do we want to go with each of these things? And that was a goal. And then we started plugging in the numbers and moved some stuff around, and then got to that.
That's like after you guys cut out the waste items and put it into a pool and then redistributed it.
Yep. So I can't tell you this additional money came from this save. I don't know. I can tell you a general thought process of where they came from. But I do know that a significant chunk that was added was from the savings that was incurred from the Retriever. Anything else? Okay. We are not allowed to negotiate over this. So Senate is not allowed to cut any of this. If you do, that is where you will get a vetoed budget, like right off the bat. So this is the full salary for Candace, for David Royer, and we give a partial contribution to David Hoffman's salary, who used to be an advisor for SGA, and part of his salary has just always stuck around the SGA budget. We have an MOU that ends next year, I think. Does that sound right, Candace? Mm-hmm. To fund part of his salary right now. And then if you haven't heard, the governor's budget is increasing salaries of state employees for 3% for COLA. And there was actually a COLA adjustment in the middle of this fiscal year that SGA did not budget for. So both of those, if you do the math, it's more than 3%, and that's why. It's because the new budget incorporates the COLA increase from this January and the governor's being 3% addition. The administrative overhead, also non-negotiable. Whatever the operating budget is, rounded to the, it should be rounded to the nearest $1,000, but that clearly didn't happen last year. It's 4% of the overall operating budget. Again, not negotiable. That money goes to, in our case, because we're under student affairs, that money goes to Dr. Young, and it goes into a pool for all student affairs. Every budget has this, so some of this money might look like a counselor in the in UHS. It might be a new coordinator in campus life. I don't know, but this 4% has to go to Dr. Young, and she will allocate it accordingly. All right, here we go. Stipends. So, first off, I want to start this conversation with there is a wildly wrong discrepancy, in my opinion, wildly wrong discrepancy in officer stipends from senators to the presidents. You all make $740 a year-ish, and I make $7,000 a year. I can honestly say, and I'm not trying to say this because yeah, I'm going to be careful about what I say with this, but like I don't have another job because this is an incredibly time-consuming thing. I spend anywhere from 30 to 50 hours a week doing SGA work. I literally could not have another job, or I do not think I would be alive. I'm barely a functioning human being as this. I think it's important. What did you say, Dr. I think it's important that we mitigate that, so that was really important. Also, how stipends have come to be historically does not make any sense. So the priorities are we want to use some sort of external number to SGA, something that we don't just make up. Reduce the discrepancy between high leadership and other positions, so president and senator. Provide some kind of competitive wages to on and off campus opportunities, because the fact of the matter is money's a thing. Encourage officers to use their time with SGA and promote retention, and lastly, remove the economic barrier to get involved with SGA. So, in the past, there's been a formula saying 746. Then what happened was, let's say assistant speaker is 1.5 times senator, and then speaker is 2 times assistant speaker, and then top 3 is going to be 2.5 times speaker, and then the president is 3 times the top 3. None of that makes a lick of sense to me, but that is the formula that is currently in the SGA budget. Yes, Mariam?
By times, you mean times their budget, or not their budget, their stipend? So like, their stipend is like 2 times X's stipend, or 1.5 times X's stipend?
Yep. So this is how we get to something cockamamie as senators making 746 and then the president making 740. It is going up exponentially because of this multiplier. So that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. So what I'm proposing is that we change the base to an actual number. 746 was just made up. Someone said that sounds like a good number to start with. So what I'm proposing is that the base is 494, which is 1 credit of in-state tuition, and you can use the SPS provides a calculator to cost what 1 credit is for FY19. You can use that and you'll get 494. actually I put in 3 because it wouldn't let me put in 1. I put in 3 and then divided by that number by 3 and you get 494. And then from that, created a multiplier system to apply to the base. And the multiplier system is definitely something that we can have a conversation of. It was just the numbers that Carly and I came up with. Note that this is a normal practice for SGAs that don't pay an hourly wage. Towson pays an hourly wage. What they do is they say, if you're a senator, you're going to make minimum wage, and your expectation is 12 hours a week. And then they will multiply that, and they will budget that accordingly. And then they actually go up for president, both wage and hours expected. For SGAs that don't want to provide an hourly wage, because this is a leadership opportunity, this is about experience, and instead we want to result that in stipends and not recognize that the hourly wage nonsense that comes along with it. Using an institutional number is a normal practice, and then identifying a multiplier, again, a normal practice. So the last that I know, College Park, they don't pay all of their officers, they just pay exact 40. But last I heard, their stipends are equivalent to tuition. Okay. So this is what it would look like. So for president, we have the multiplier at 15. So 15 times 494 was 7410. For the top 3, Carly and I said that should be 3 less than that, which would be 12. 12 times 494 is 5928. For Senate, we said that, and Finance Board representatives, it would be 9, which would be 4446. There's a couple things I want to point out already. First is that the Finance Board, we are budgeting for 7 seats. Note that there are only 5 seats right this second. Part of Finance Board reform, we are going to propose to increase the size of Finance Board. There's a lot of work that has to happen. We want to make sure that we're allocating a lot of money to a lot of different student organizations the best way that we can. So we want to increase the board, and the budget is prepared to do that. Speaker and assistant speaker and chair and vice chair, these are not different jobs. You are still a senator, you just have another different responsibility added on. And again, this is a normal practice for most other SGAs in the country to not treat it like a different job, but provide an additional stipend to people in leadership in the legislative body. So for speaker, we're proposing 250 because we just wanted to round it off. And for assistant speaker and vice chair, we were proposing 150. So in FY19, the president made 9 times as much as senator. In the FY20 proposed, it'll be close to 2. Again, this was a big thing that we were trying to cut down on. Internally for the legislative branch, speaker to senate right this second is 3 times. Next year, it will be almost nothing. Same thing for assistant to senator. That's actually like wrong, but yes. No, that's right, sorry. The assistant speaker and vice chair get paid the same to senator finance board. Right now is 1.5, and again, what we're proposing is that it would be almost nothing more. This is a real thing. Just out of curiosity, of senators in the room and senators in the room only, if you get income of any kind from at least one other source, can you please raise your hand? And that could be in the form of a stipend gift card, that could be
Scholarships?
like real, like a job that you work at, that you get money at.
But not scholarship. Okay.
Not scholarship. Nothing that particularly affects tuition. All right, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Great, thank you. Okay, because that's real. College is unaffordable, as we all know. And to help afford college, a lot of people go and work. And when you go work, you are not spending your time here. And you are not serving as many students as well as you could in as many capacities as you could if you were just here and you didn't have to have another job. So I wanted to break down what this looks like if you were to get a job outside the loop and you work for minimum wage. And I also wanted to compare it to another on-campus opportunity. SEB, their officers' annual stipends, they make $4,000 a year. So for being on Senate and Finance Board, right this very second, if you had to think about, I want to be a leader on campus, but money's a real thing, I love all of you so much, but there's no real reason that you're in this room if that's a thing. You should go be and do stuff for SEB. And I think that everyone in this room should be here to help student voice. So we need to do a better job of being competitive and being thoughtful about that. Any questions so far? Okay. Yes, Miriam?
Can you talk about this?
Yeah, so if you are outside the loop, minimum wage is $10.10. You with me? Okay. If you were to work 10 hours a week, you would be making $101. Per semester, you'd be making $1,500. So per academic year, you'd be making $3,000. And then what these things show is if you were to change the variable by the hours of the week. So if you were to work 15 hours instead of 10, this is how much you'd make at the end of the year. If you're working 20 hours a week, this is how much you'd make at the end of the year. And this is all assuming, though, that you're getting paid minimum wage.
And by semester, you mean 15 hours a semester?
15 weeks in a semester. Does that make sense? Okay. Anyone else?
So like I guess like the basis was sort of like to, I guess, mirror like minimum wage.
Not mirror it, but make sure that we were competitive to outside campus monetary opportunities. And on campus, really. Because this doesn't include things like being an RA. Okay. There was an excellent Retriever article that came out, I think, in last edition about our director of communications actually resigned for this exact reason. That they just weren't, she wasn't being paid enough and had to leave the organization. In my experience, this has been more true than not for a good reason why people have to leave SGA. And if people are being paid more, your quality of work, there should be a higher expectation. If you're missing SGC meetings, that isn't, oh, I'm missing an SGC meeting. You're missing an SGC meeting, you're being paid to be in that room and advocate for students. So these increases do not take away the power of the Stipend Review Committee. In fact, if there's more money, the power of the Stipend Review Committee is actually greater because half your stipend is a lot more. So another reason to be mindful about these changes with stipends. And again, it's going back to the idea that if you want to get involved with SGA, if you want to be a leader on campus, there should be nothing preventing you from doing that, including money. That should not be a reason why you don't advocate and contribute your voice on campus. Conclusion, significant stipend increases. This is definitely a multi-year problem because these don't even impact, I don't think that this is all-encompassing. I think that this is a starting point. Again, this budget's for 2 additional Finance Board representatives. And most importantly, this comes without increasing the student activity fee. So this is what the executive branch looks like. This is the legislative branch. Given how our budget is broken down, I had to separate speaker and assistant speaker and chair and vice chair. And then senators and finance board representatives, they are in a pool of money. And then judicial branch, same principle was applied for the election board as well. That's it. Any questions there about stipends? Okay. I think that we're getting to the last bit. Are we doing good? Does anyone need a stretch break? Keep powering through? Keep powering through. Got it.
Break right after this.
Great. Okay. So university partnerships and collaborations. There were 3 main bullet points that Carly and I discussed when we were reviewing this section of the budget. Are SGA officers involved in creating, implementing, or designing this program initiative? And does SGA recognize as a funding source? So really, are students involved in making this thing? Is there institutional support for this program or initiative from multiple offices and departments on campus? And lastly, ultimately, does it make sense for this program or initiative to use funds from student activity fee? Are there other fees that can support this program or initiative? Those were our criteria. So for example, if SGA officers or undergraduate students were not involved in creating or implementing the program or initiative, we don't really think the student activity fee should be going to fund that university partnership and collaboration. Is there institutional support for this program or initiative? Again, if there is something that the institution markets and is really proud of themselves for holding, why is the student activity fee a sole funder to that initiative? And that's what we mean by that very question. So overall, there are being cuts being made. We're not going from 100 to 0 because it's not really responsible. It's looking at it as a phase out. Carly and I have already met with all but 2 campus administrators, and I'll talk about that when we get there, about these different budgets. And again, it's not because we don't believe in these programs. It's figuring out where does this money really make sense. It's really easy for SGA to amend our budget. It's a little more difficult for campus departments and offices to do that. So when something really awesome comes up, we want to make sure that we see it. But what SGA needs to do a better job of doing is how do we provide money for year 1, year 2, maybe even year 3, but year 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 onto eternity? How do we make sure that we're not locking ourselves into a situation that there's institutional benefit from, not just from SGA? Does that make sense? Okay. We're also establishing the Civic Learning Democratic Engagement Fund. This MOU is still pending. It will be an MOU between SGA and the Center for Democracy and Civic Life to support STRIVE and any other programs that SGA and the Center are collaborating to work on. And again, the major reason behind this is that students have to be involved in creating whatever happens out of this. So the first partnership is the AOK. We have the DVD fund. We have data that says that not a lot of undergraduate students are utilizing this. And I had a conversation with Patrick Dawson, who's the director of the library, totally ecstatic that they were getting $500 for next fiscal year. The hydration station in the RLC was an SGA initiative that has just been long-lived. And we pay for the maintenance, and we pay for the new filters in that hydration station. Campus Life, for the record, I did initially propose a cut to Quadmania and Homecoming, and that was said to have a substantial effect on those 2 programs for next fiscal year. Though Campus Life did agree that there needs to be an exit strategy for SGA, this just isn't the fiscal year to do that. I agreed with them, and we went back to fully funding Quadmania and Homecoming in the budget. So Involvement Fest, we're still supporting it, just not 100%. Again, Campus Life and students benefit from Involvement Fest, not just SGA. So it makes sense to split the cost with Campus Life, and that's what this cut is doing. Student Leadership Awards Ceremony, yeah, that doesn't sound like it's our responsibility. If SGA does not lead the Student Leadership Awards Ceremony, that is all from Campus Life. If that's something that they want to do and that's something that they value, sounds like it should come from their budget. Welcome Week, I asked, we originally had this at $1,000, and we were told that, frankly, Campus Life didn't need that money. And they would have rather had it in Quadmania and Homecoming. So it was there, but they actually asked us to remove it because they would not have used it for next fiscal year because they were able to support it in other places in their budget. Did I sum that up well, Candace?
Yeah, I think the other point is that, and you hit on it a little bit about if programs are institutional programs, for instance, Involvement Fest. Someone said to me, I'm not going to say who, someone said, I had no idea that SGA basically funded half of Involvement Fest. But it's not for promote it that way. It's a Campus Life event. So Campus Life banner event, Campus Life feels like they should be funding that. And I like I said, trying to get to an exit strategy of how SGA gets out of the gaming, funding these sorts of things, so that I can use the student activity fee for other things, because if they're Campus Life events, they should be Campus Life events.
Yep. Yeah. OCSS, same kind of principle being applied to all of these things. So I had Carly and I met with Dr. Silas, who is the director of OCSS, asked him if these funding levels were appropriate, would make sense, and he was able to still do his programs. He said yes. So again, SGA is not, I'll get to your second yes. SGA is not a contributed as a funding source for Community Week, nor are we contributing to the planning of that event. So that is an OCSS event. If we're applying that principle from Campus Life to everyone equally, then OCSS should be cut as well. It's the same thing with Good Morning Commuters. That is it's providing breakfast every Tuesday morning to commuters. Again, SGA is not labeled as a funding source, nor do we collaborate with them to make that happen. That's an OCSS thing. So again, trying to start that exit strategy. Yes, yes.
Okay, this is the biggest thing for me and why I frustrated with the budget. Because, no disrespect to Dr. Silas, but I did my own investigating of why this was a reason. Because even when we went over it during retreat, my question was why are we cutting it? He's fairly new, so he doesn't really know the ins and outs. So I met personally myself with people who actually put on Good Morning Commuters and Community Week. And the facts that I've collected doesn't make sense of why we're cutting our funding to that. And the problem is that it's not a collaboration, and we need to make it a collaboration because commuters pay student fees, and so therefore they need to be represented in what we're doing.
Okay. Would you feel better if I talked to Dan as well, since he was the former director of OCSS?
Sure.
Okay. And I totally agree, and Dr. Silas brought that up in our meeting as well. He seemed comfortable with it, but I'll talk to Dan about it since he had a few more years under his belt with these programs, and then see if this makes sense to him. Gotcha. And then I will report back with Dr. Parkinson. Yes.
And like, if there's any other SGA's contribution to like these collaborations is done with the idea that funding will be gotten from other places, right?
Yep.
So whose responsibility is that to find the funding or like facilitate that like transition?
It'll be the departments. So in this case, OCSS. In our last slide, it would have been Campus Life.
And does SGA like have a stake in like guiding that, or is it, are we just letting them, or are we just like assuming that they're going to keep to their route and?
So I see where you're going at. I think there is the level of like, we're going to cut this, you say that you value this, you say that you're going to fund this, take it at word. That's very true. I think that Senate has the authority, though, to call in any campus director and say, look, we have this verbal agreement, what happened in this program? That is within the Senate's authority.
So how exactly do you map this, though? Like,
well, I think, so for example, I'm going to pick on Yes. If Good Morning Commuters doesn't happen at all next year because there was a $1,000 reduction, then I think that is when Senate calls in Dr. Silas and says, what happened to Good Morning Commuters? Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I think like I don't know, that specific example, I don't think that could be like applied to like every single collaboration on this list. Like I think there needs to be like a, I don't know, transition type sheet that we get to see.
Okay. Yeah. Anything else on this one?
No.
Okay. Costs. We've had technically a 3-year MOU with costs. 5. Well, we've been in it for 3, but it was signed for 5. The first part of it was we would allocate $50,000 as insurance money to the POB for student organizations to use the space in the POB. The second part was that we would allocate $2,500 to Arts Partnership, which would reduce the cost for students to attend events in the POB. And then the third was having a student manager position work in the POB in the evenings to effectively be a babysitter for student organizations that use the space. So, hot update for everyone. Student organizations still cannot use the POB for their space. That money for $50,000 insurance has been allocated and is out of the SGA account. That was a part of the MOU last year. SGA, in my opinion, we have lived up to our part of the MOU. We have provided funds, we've transferred it to the accounts. The ball is in CASA's courts. And it's frustrating that they have not fulfilled their part of the agreement, kind of going back to what Miriam was just talking about. So if they want students to attend CAS events, which again, this really wasn't what that fund was supposed to go towards, sounds like something that CAS should be passionate about and trying to do. But again, they're not living up to their part of the MOU. And our part is purely financial, so we need to reconsider that, in my opinion. Yes, Miriam.
What is CAS?
Oh, sorry, College of Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences. So the CAS, the management of POB falls under CAS. Yeah.
Have they used the $50,000 already?
Nope.
No?
It's just sitting there.
It's just sitting there.
It's been transferred out of our account, to my knowledge.
Okay.
Yep.
And so the plan is to give that back.
Can't. If it's been transferred out, we can't get the money back.
So then what do we need to do since we can't get it back to ensure that students can use it to some capacity so it's gone?
We're working on that now. I mean, that's the best answer I can give you.
Okay.
Brandon?
Yeah, so I think to provide context also for $50,000, I think the MOU is supposed to be insurance for like damages, so that when students are able to use the POB, which they still haven't, right? So that's also what Colin was saying about we've stepped up, but they haven't. But our part of stepping up was providing contingencies for damages that students could accrue to the POB. And then now that we have that, they should be letting us use their space.
Exactly.
But that's what the $50,000 is for.
Okay, I got you.
So like, real quick, that money's like not to be spent. That money will sit there until like the exam, and then it'll be like taken out of that money.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying.
That's the intention.
Or is it like the insurance fund?
Yeah. We good? So athletics bike share, met with Gary Holsauer, who is Associate Director of Athletics. He actually proposed $3,000. He said that he didn't even use all $4,000 for this year. He said he does fine with $3,000. That worked out swimmingly. Met with the Women's Center. They did not even know that they had $2,500 for this fiscal year. No one had a conversation with them about their funding for Take Back the Night since the fund was introduced 2 years ago. And they as well are okay with $1,500 and have said that is what they want and expect of their programming. So this wasn't a cut for cut's sake. It was, this is what the Women's Center requested, and we're able to fund this and we don't want to allocate money for the sake of allocating money. Transit Arbutus Community Center Partnership. This was money to help support Okamoka. How much? Okay. Yep, okay. So last year, SGA allocated over $75,000 to Okamoka. Our return on investment has been stellar, and that is heavy sarcasm. We have been promised time and time again that Okamoka is going to be opening this date, and then this date, and then this date. That was a lot of money for SGA to just hand over. Actually, the total for FY18, SGA, is that right? Yeah, for FY18, SGA allocated $80,000, $75,000 in capital expenditure for Okamoka, and then the additional $5,000 in the operating budget. The intent behind that $75,000, from my understanding, since I wasn't here that year, was that it was supposed to help with the capital expenditures of Okamoka. If you haven't heard or you're not aware of this yet, Okamoka cannot be they cannot be a university-run coffee shop that hosts profits. And hosting a profit was a huge part of the business model. So what is happening now is Okamoka, they have a lease for a space in Arbutus, and they are now subleasing the space to an actual coffee shop to make coffee there. So again, I want to reiterate, I do not believe that SGA has had a great return on investment from this partnership. This is actually, there are two conversations I have not had with campus administrators. This would be one of them, and the second one is actually with cost. So the two probably most contentious ones I have not had a conversation with, but we'll be entertaining what they have to say. So because of this, Carly and I felt it was not appropriate to continue to fund something that we have not benefited from after.
Can you explain what Okamoka was supposed to be and is now for the people?
Okamoka started off as a project from an entrepreneurship class that it was a student-run, student-managed coffee shop in Arbutus. It is now effectively a space that is being subleased to a coffee shop to make coffee.
So it will no longer be.
That part I'm not firmed up on. There might be student workers there. It's definitely not going to be student managed because it's going to be a company that's doing it. Yeah.
It's not affiliated with UMBC.
It will still be affiliated with you. Wait, what are you asking?
Oh, sorry, is it affiliated with UMBC?
It is that Okamoka or the subless people?
Yeah, the second one.
The subless? Yeah. They are not UMBC. They're literally an outside coffee people.
That just took the space now.
It's still UMBC space. Am I, Candace?
It's similar like Salsaritas.
Yeah.
Salsaritas is inside the commons. That Salsaritas is run by Front Bus. Right? So it's in space that UMBC controls, but UMBC is not necessarily in control of who works there, what they serve, what their hours are. Like that's the gist of it.
Yep. And then the last thing was what I mentioned on the first slide about collaborations, which was the CLD programming fund. Okay, that was it for co-sponsorships. SGA programs and operations, so this is everything internal to SGA. A lot of these line items were just wrong. They did not reflect how they were actually being utilized. So this proposal is trying to alleviate and move back the needle to where it should be for what we actually do and what we actually spend. So marketing promo is a big thing that just gets way over budgeted. We do not end up spending the majority of this money, which is reflected here. So you'll notice Stay Black and Gold promo items is zeroed out. Stay Black and Gold Fund, as we have discussed many times, is not a scholarship fund that we are supposed to be broadcasting out to the universe. It is a scholarship fund for emergency uses when all sources of other scholarships on and off campus have been exhausted, and these are extenuating circumstances like my house burnt down and I don't have the money to afford anything else, I need help. That is what the Stay Black and Gold Fund is for. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to be promoting that because we want to make sure that the money's there for the students that that fund was intended for originally. Yeah.
So another point of clarification on Stay Black and Gold, it's not like an application process or anything like you would think a typical scholarship is. It's through referrals and nominations by departments. So that's why that's not really relevant.
Okay. stress-free zone, I reduced by $86 to A, mess with Brenda, and B, because I wanted to be meticulous, that we had an even budget because I have acute OCD. So the budget added up to be $1.113 million even, no change, no weird numbers at the end. And I talked to Brenda, she was okay with it being cut by $86. Inauguration and end of the year dinner. This is actually more for the inauguration than the end of the year dinner. If you haven't been to an inauguration yet, we invite every single person at UMBC to come. We try to get some food, we try to get some decorations, we try for it to be a nice thing. I talked to Lacia, who is our administrator. She says $2,000 is not what we will be end up spending for the inauguration alone. So this cost reflects that. The initiative fund and the Prove It winning proposal have been left unchanged at $10,000. So the initiative fund is what the exec branch and legislative branch use monies for when they have an initiative. Copier rental, non-negotiable costs. We're in contract with literally every other department and group in this building. We don't really buy computers anymore, so we took out equipment update. Meeting support, we use a lot of spaces in this building and elsewhere on campus. That money is not reflective of what we actually do. Member development, this is actually money to help with the SGA coordinator, SGA advisor as well, but it's also can be used for things like conferences, for SGA officers to go to, just all types of development in front of SGA. USMSC relations, that's the University System Maryland Student Councils. We've never fully used this budget. What this budget pays for is there's one meeting of USMSC on campus per year, and they do not use $2,000. Finance Board is getting a new allocation system next year, and this is a, what's the right word for it, Candace? What am I thinking of? Nope, I'm thinking of a different thing. Never mind.
Something else, right?
No, yep, I got it. I'm just trying to get to what you know what's wrong. This is, we're getting a new Finance Board allocation system next year, and we're entering a contract for it, and SGA will be contributing $5,000 to it, and Campus Life will be covering the remaining balance, which I think this equates to about half.
That's a software, so we move away from DocuSign to use an actual application software for when a student or submits it.
Oh, anyone have any questions on that? Great. Okay. So here are the highlights. Operating with a 1.113 budget with expected revenues that's pulling $53,000 from reserves. I explained this at the retreat, but a what's the word I'm looking for? Yep. Insert word here. You can do up to 5% of pooling from the
Drop down.
Not that word. You can use up to 5% of reserves to cover operating budget, like as a responsible practice. We're continuing to. Thanks, Siri. I don't know what's happening, but all of my Siris are talking to me. Okay. So we're continuing to support charter student organizations, although it appears that we are not funding the Retriever at last year's fiscal year amount, which is true. It's not because we don't believe in the Retriever and not believe what they're doing. They are just at 135% over their reserve balance. And this budget is trying to alleviate some of that pressure that has been built up from those reserves. We're increasing student support for student organizations through the Finance Board by $38,000. We're increasing stipends, cutting a lot of internal SGA costs, and we were able to reevaluate a lot of the existing university co-sponsorships. Yeah. So here's the timeline. We are at 2:18. We're going to Finance Board tomorrow night. We are at the beginning of the public release and public comment period. These dates are now wrong. That ultimately, we are looking to have the budget passed before spring break, so some of these dates are tentative to change. The The one thing that I don't think I explained in the process is Senate and Finance Board get to do this whole fun back and forth thing, maybe, hopefully not, because that's a really long drawn out process. And then once I approve the budget, it still has to be accepted by the Student Activity Fee Review Board. If the membership of SAFRB deny the budget, it goes back to Senate, and Senate has to go through the process of passing the budget again. I want to let everyone know that this timeline is missing a town hall that we plan to have. Once we have the date officially confirmed, I will be putting it in this slide and also making my UMBC event for when that is. There's a link to the budget, and there we are. If you haven't seen, if you go to the SGA website, you go under Leadership Executive Branch FY20 Proposed Budget proposal or whatever, you get this page. This is the big picture highlights the stuff, includes the presentation, and most importantly, there is a feedback form for anyone to fill out if they'd like to submit comments to us, if they won't be able to join us at the public forum that we have at a date that is waiting ECS confirmation. Questions about anybody? Goes away.
So I think I was kind of like overlooking the comment section. I think one of the, there's a lot of program stuff, but one of the main things I kind of actually like thought to was I'm sorry, was that it seems that a lot of people are just very like upset with like what looks like to be cutting from a lot of student boards and with that. And so I think the way you were explaining it, as I understood it, is that although they may be cutting certain things, I think the main one was like the retriever, correct me if I'm wrong. You were trying to show more support once they like the finance board changes, correct?
Yeah, so the finance board is getting an additional $38,000. So they will be funded at $313,000 in this proposed budget. So to say that a general student organization is being affected by this budget is actually not true, because we are giving more money than we ever have to the finance board ever before. The only student organization that is not being funded at the FY19 levels is the Retriever. And the idea behind that is, even if the Retriever was funded at $0 from SGA, they could still submit their $100,000 to SAFRB, be approved, and then use all their reserve account and still be okay. They'd be able to have all their operations. Giving them $0 is pretty reckless. So that's why our proposal has $30,000. That way, they're still being funded, but they're also working on getting rid of those reserves that are really above where they should be. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Did you have a question, Mary? I'm going with senators first. Senators. Yeah. Huh? Who's going to go? Me. Sure.
Oh, me? Sure. Sorry I came a bit late. I had class. But I was wondering, well, you mentioned how like $38,000 increase for the finance board, like in terms of funding student orgs.
Mm-hmm.
Yet we're having a $30,000 cut from the Retriever, which is also a student org.
Mm-hmm.
So really, we're not adding much money to student orgs. We're just moving from one student org to a lot of other student orgs through the finance board. It doesn't seem to me to be like, it doesn't seem to add up to me. Like, because the concern is with cutting funds from student orgs. And like, if the response is that we're increasing money that's going towards student orgs, yet we're taking an equivalent, almost equivalent amount away from another student org, it doesn't seem quite like it evens out there to me.
So this won't affect the Retriever's operations at all, though. Because what's going to happen is, so they have $135,000 in their reserve account right now. Because every charter org has a reserve account. Other clubs and organizations don't have that. They have their club carryover account, right? So if they propose a $100,000 budget to SAFRB, they can say $30,000 would come from SGA, and the remaining $70,000 is going to come from our reserve account, and then their reserve account next year would still have close to $70,000. So the Retriever's operations will not change at all. And instead, we are still giving more money to student organizations, more student organizations, to your point, through the finance board. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm still not sure I agree with the logic though, because it seems to me that the retriever has things that they could do with that money if you were to like fund them fully. Like, it's not like the retriever is limited in scale to perhaps the way it currently exists. And if the retriever is growing and has a like large amount of reserve, it doesn't seem to me that it's wise to say, oh, this group, this org is doing very well. It has a lot of money on hand. So let's cut its money so it can't use that money it has to expand and grow even more. Like, it seems to me that you're, like, the retriever to some degree is successful. Like, it's been very successful in the last year or so. So why is it almost being punished for that success is my question.
There's nothing against the retriever. I love the retriever. I think that they're doing a lot of great work. The fact is that they're sitting on a lot of cash.
That's true, but like I think you have to understand there is a bit of like certainly what people were saying in the chat, on the meme page, all sorts of stuff. There's a sentiment going around that the SGA is taking money from the retriever, not necessarily because they think that that's fair and just, but because of other things squabbles had in the past, challenges to the SGA's authority. That's certainly the way it looks.
It's not. It absolutely is not. There's over, so for charter organizations, Nate, the minimum is 15% of your operating budget. So for the retriever, that'd be $15,000. So a healthy target would be being between $15,000 and $30,000, and they are over by their own operating budget in their own reserve account. And we want to be thoughtful of how can we distribute more of the student activity fee to more students, and we would like to do that through the Student Organizations Finance Board pot, knowing that the retrievers could be perfectly okay because they have that backup money, because they have been doing really well. They've been bringing in a lot of ad revenue. They've been cutting costs, and now they're able to help more student organizations in a different way.
I certainly don't want to monopolize question time, but I suppose like my last question would be, like, if that really is the ideal way to go about things, why was it funded at $60,000 last year? And from what it seems to me, that's been, like, perhaps other retriever people could tell me, is that like something that's been going on in the past? Like, what has the retriever been funded at previously, like in previous years?
It's been at $60K for at least the last 5 years.
So then, why was the last at least 5 SGA administrations funding it at such above bar under your reasoning?
I think that's a question for previous SGA administrations.
Fortunately, they graduated. You're all we got at the moment.
I know, sadly. Yeah.
I know that you mentioned that you were letting Sandra speak, but
go for it.
All right. So there are a few misconceptions, and I'm not going to monologue too much of the time. I think I'll let Julie take most of it. But the first thing that I really wanted to make sure that I say is that what is in our reserve funds is not actually mostly from the student activity fee, and mostly from what you all give us. We have the opportunity as one of the only of the big three or of the charter organizations to make revenue, unlike SCB, who pretty much they make tickets for their own events, so it goes back into water, and we have the ability to make revenue from our ads. In other words, we can make surplus. That's actually what's been going back into the reserves. Your $60,000 actually goes to fixed costs, so mainly students, or costs that we know that we're going to have every year just for us to open our door. So the $60,000 is burned. So pretty much, I think one of the reasons why we have a little bit of concern is that you are taking funding that we made and that our people, our ad representatives, worked really hard to get. And it's not as if we're not like other organizations where that reserve account is just sitting there for emergencies. We've actually saved that intentionally for the last 4 years under me, Jeremy, the last business manager, as well as Sam, the last like 3-4 editor chiefs ago. with the intention of being able to do so, we wanted to save it up to a point so we could do certain things. Because again, we can make revenue, we understand this, so we make sacrifices, so that way we can say that, so that way we could eventually reach the point where we are now. And just also to be clear, you're saying 135, that number is inaccurate. Right now it's over 117, and also that number is just kind of a number in the sky because we've actually already been slated and have already started spending excess money to bring those reserves down. So at the end of the fiscal year is when David balances all his sheets, or David Royer, I don't know if you guys know him, you'll actually see that our reserves are already coming down. We've already met with SAFRB with budget meetings for the last two and a half years, with plans that since we were so high, we recognize that and that high intentionally, that money is guaranteed to be slated down with new bins, with new initiatives and different things that we're having. So just so we're all clear, that number is inaccurate and the number that's on there is going to be going down. But like I said, I don't want to take most of the time. I see your hands raised. I'm going to go ahead and guess that you get the floor next. But if possible, I think that's just so we're all on the same page and all saying things that are kind of realistic. I think I would appreciate if Julie can get the chance next. But I don't know your position, so please.
Julie, if you're ready.
There were some senators.
No, you can go.
Are you sure? Okay. First, I would just like to note for the record and for everyone in the room that we were informed of this on Friday and did not have a conversation with Colin or any other executive board members like it seems he had with other campus-like leaders and initiative leaders. So as such, we've been forced to go on the defensive. So as Raj just mentioned, talking about our ad revenue, our reserves, yeah, they're high. And they're high when you look at other orgs. But the 15 to 30% reserve minimum, it's not a mandate, it's a suggestion. We keep our reserves high to keep us from having, because we keep our reserves high because we run into situations that you guys or SEB would not normally run into. I reached out to a couple editor-in-chiefs of years past for information, and they've all said the same thing to me, that we keep them high because we run into things that you don't. We can get sued for what we write. Last semester, we almost did. Dr. Young, Dr. Barnhart, Dr. Frabowski know about this, and now I'm announcing it so all of you can also know. The money is a safety net. If we need legal help, if we need, if SGA chooses not to fund us, whatever happens. So, as I said before, the 15 to 30% minimum for reserve accounts is a suggestion that does not hold up in practice for the retriever. I make $3,500 for the whole year. So as it stands, that's exactly half of Colin's current salary. Under his argument, our salary should also be adjusted to face the rising influence of the economy. With this proposal as it stands, if I'm reelected, which I'm planning on running for reelection for editor-in-chief, I will not be taking a salary because I would rather our writers be paid than I be paid. I also would like to ask one question that we haven't heard an answer to. What does SGA expect to do once the retriever hits its 15 to 30% reserves? Because there's a lot of budget increases on your end that aren't going to go away in 2 years. And having us operating at $30,000 puts us in a dangerous place for when the 2 years are up. So the argument 2 years down the line can be made that, oh, they've been operating at $30,000, that's fine, they'll live. Or what do we do when we run out of reserves because we've been forced to dip into them too much to the point where we have absolutely no money left? Where do we draw the line between putting ads in our paper and supporting student writers? So there have been no conclusive points to address this, and I think the cut is a short-term solution to what problems it sounds like SGA is addressing. And yeah, that's all.
Is that question, I think that question was actually put on the table. Is there an answer or is there not an answer this time? What do you kind of do in the 2 years? I think that's kind of a reasonable question. I'm not sure if you said it before I came.
There's not a real answer because the funding that we're proposing is a short-term plan to help mitigate the Retrievers Reserve Fund.
So you keep saying that. So you're saying that it's, and the only reason why I'm a little bit, I am admittedly upset, but what I want to understand is that you keep saying how it is to mitigate the Retrievers Reserve Fund. Is there a purpose to bring down a reserve fund, or is the purpose to add to all the things that you want to do? In other words, those things that you want to do, which seem fine and great, and I completely, I'm very involved in CMI, so I completely agree with all these things. But all those things you want to do, you're going to want to do them in 2 short years. So, well, I don't understand what you're saying. Once we're mitigated down, those, if you're increasing stipends, those stipends aren't going to come back because no one's going to say, you know what, I'm going to cut my stipends. If you're increasing funding to orgs, which again, great thing, no org is going to say, well, I don't, you gave me a bunch for the last few years. I'm coming down. Let me come down now. So I really don't think this is a strategy that you. I don't agree that it's fiscally responsible for you to go in to this strategy without at least having a plan of what happens when the money runs out. Because right now, I don't know a better way of saying it, and I do apologize, but it kind of seems like you're seeing free money, and let's use that free money. I know that's a crude way of saying it, but that kind of seems what it is. And again, I will just try to make clear that one, that money isn't free, and it's already been budgeted, already been set for. Parts of our budget are in the red, but again, in the red intentionally, planned, SAFRB approved, over, and it's not just kind of being made last year. It's because we know that SGA will not give us more than 60K, something that every SGA president and us have known for years. We decided that we want things we have to save for it. So we planned 4 years ahead. I have plans from previous business managers that are just going to realize. So I said a bunch of things here, and I apologize for that. But basically, is if you're entering a plan without an end solution, making promises that won't be able to see in, it's not 5, 10, 15 odd years that are 2 fiscal years. And then 2, you're making plans off money that doesn't actually exist. And when the budget does come and all of the sheets balance, that money won't be there. We've already spent it. So
thank you. Jared?
Yeah, so for the retriever, definitely hearing you guys' concerns, I think they're all very accurate, So I guess my question is as far as so I'm really kind of with you guys. So, but as far as just the major consequences, is the biggest thing for you guys that there's no plan for this to be mitigated in the future? Because, or is the biggest concern that it's just that money just should not be touched because that's the reserves you have set aside for emergencies?
Well, first off, I appreciate the question. That's not my answer. That's fine. Cool. I don't think those things should be separated. I think the biggest concern is that money that again, what's being quoted isn't real, but let's pretend it is. That money shouldn't be touched because for the various reasons of why you said I won't say them again. That I think is our main concern. And as for what we're going to do in 2 years, I think as someone who's part of the school, goes to the school, has invested into the school, that's the concern just from someone who's fiscally responsible, is in 2 years, what happens? And I'm not worried about that from our standpoint, is in oh, you're gonna run a strike. You're gonna run a strike. I'm worried about where's that money that you guys have. If you increase the spending, where's that increase of money gonna come from when you're done with us?
Right. Well, I mean, that's a big concern for me too. Because like I said before, I like the work you guys do a lot.
I appreciate it. But so just to correct, from a retriever standpoint, I don't think that money should be touched. That's my main concern there. From someone who understands how money works, I don't think that's where your plan, actually makes fiscal sense. From again, what I understand, I only heard about Friday, so maybe I have much of the details I could have, but with what information I kind of had to look at.
So I'm assuming that like I have a question more about numbers. So I'm assuming like all of this is like available for students to see, correct? Like the retriever spending, like how it's allocated properly.
So retrievers budget, I know that that's available to see. As to the current, as in what we budgeted,
yeah.
I know it's available to see, but what has actually been spent or already been spent, I don't know that's available to see, but I'm sure we can talk to David. And for even if, let's say, and as for our presentations to SAFRB, those are always open to SGA people and SUE people. No one has to come. But so all these things where SFRB agreed to, hey, you're going to spend an extra 20,000, an extra 15,000 to get you in. They said yes. We started the process. So the overall budget, you can see when that budget actually becomes actualized and but the total balance, you probably won't be able to see until the end of the year.
The 5 years that you referenced for spending, we could all see that, correct?
I'm sorry?
The 5 years you referenced for spending, we could all see that, correct?
The 5 years that I didn't
You
plan?
referenced like 5 years of like saving after spending, correct?
Well, you can
60,000, so we could see. I'm just asking, we could see that information, correct?
You can see the savings and then the money being left over. As for our plans, they are in our drive. Like we have our cloud safe. I'm not sure if I'm answering the question
Like
that you want.
spending, so like you got $60,000,
yes.
like, for example, 5 years ago, and you got $60,000 for the last 5 years.
Yes.
So you have, I'm assuming you have the receipts for how you spent that money.
Oh yes, those are all kept either through us or also with David Royer and SAP.
Okay, and we have access to that. That's all I'm asking.
As far as I know, you should.
1 point. So I was looking at our fiscal year 19 proposed budget that we went in December or November of the SAFRB. Yeah, in the fall. Our operating costs, as it stands, like just to keep the paper running without salaries, without stipends, without added things like bins, travel expenses, anything like that, it's a little over $42,000. So I'm saying that because with the way that this budget is set out and with the way that we would like to keep our reserves in the event that something does happen, we do publish something, we do get sued, SGA decides to stop funding us completely, something bad happens, we would have to have the conversation of whose salaries do we fund, and then what are we able to do? Will we be able to send our sports section to the Bahamas or to March Madness or to wherever else they're going? Will we be able to fund the parts of the retriever that make it the retriever, really? So that's something that we'll have to talk about. We haven't really had time to address those questions internally yet, but in order to stabilize us and maintain where we're at now, those are questions that will have to be answered going forward.
And I do apologize for monopolizing time, and I recognize that. But one thing that I do kind of want to point out, and I never want to come across, I'm always someone that is very much against whining. I don't like complaining. I like to, if I'm going to say something that I disagree with, I want to come up with a solution. That's just who I am as a person. With that said, I think that I understand that there are costs, and I understand that there are things that need to be made better. Just with the parts of the meeting that I've been in, and also I was watching the YouTube as I was on my way here. It seems that there's been a lot of spending on SGA's side that really was bad spending, and that's unfortunate. And I recognize that for such a large organization with so many things going on, because I think I counted, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you mentioned about 3 different places where people didn't even know they had the money. Or there are other places where it was about, I'm not sure if you said 50K, for the thing with the arts, again, correct me anywhere that I'm saying something wrong, that hasn't been used or hasn't been touched. It seems as if the money has been mishandled, or even if it hasn't been mishandled, maybe that might be a strong word, it has not been handled well. But yes, we are getting cut. We're getting cut. Plans that we have for these reserves that have again already been approved, already in process, are pretty much didn't get a chance to even be talked about. And you're making plans to use that money to fix what seems to be, again, I don't intend to be harsh, I don't intend to act as if I know more than I do, so please, again, correct me, but what seems to be SGA's mistakes is and at the same time receiving really broad stipend increase. Like, I'll be honest, I don't mind saying what I make $80 a week, and I promise you, I won't pretend that I spend as much as 50 hours a week, but I spend anywhere between 30 and 40 hours a week. And anyone can come into my office and see that I'm always in my office doing something or doing work, because our advertising revenue, because we never want to increase that 60K, because we recognize the work that you all do, and I want to point out we appreciate the work that you all do. We are always working at advertising. We go on grad a grad school visit, like NYU. I have students who went to NYU. I said, hey, go drop off our brochures in their guided office. Maybe we can get an ad there. People went to Stevenson, we have made an ad relationship with them. We're trying to make up whatever we want, we make it up on our end. Whatever we can afford, we do without. Whatever we want in later fiscal years, we do without and save so we can have it. For example, the bins that we're starting to buy now. You guys have seen our bins, they're like rusty, glass is broken. You can get tetanus off. It's literally disgusting. Those are all we planned for those things, and now you're putting us in a position that we will not be able to do those things. You're putting us in a position that we are again comparing us to organizations that don't really have a reason to get sued, don't really have a reason to be antagonistic with the people who are giving out money, and it just seems that. Again, you saw your money and are trying to get at it. Now, with that said, the solution part of it is that we would be happy to work with SGA. I recognize that we really do. We have a large reserve. Yes, most of it has a purpose, and yes, we understand that. But having the conversation to start there, actually having a conversation instead of just hearing it Friday, I think would have been appreciated. So that way we can help along that. Here's the paper. Colin and I last semester had a conversation about how expensive student works to really advertise with us, and I told him then, and you can again tell me if I'm saying something different, but I recognize that and we agree with them. And even speaking over our winter retreat, we wanted to find ways that, hey, can we cut this cost? Can we give it for free? And maybe work with SGA and say, hey, listen, we will absorb that cost of some of the cost of marketing as it allows, because student targets are marketing our stuff, they're probably going to pick up our stuff, which increases more stuff, which increases more marketing, which increases more advertising, which makes us all do better. Those are sustainable solutions that could have been addressed, that we were actually prepared to talk about, but then we heard this. So I say all that to say that this, I think I said I hate being a person or something. I think I've been pretty clear about my points.
One. Thank you for your feedback. Jared, how much time are you going to cut me off?
Good 2 minutes.
2 minutes. Okay. Miriam?
Yeah, so it seems like there was a lack of communication and like some misinformation that happened or occurred. So I wanted to know what did you go about when consulting like different stakeholders to propose this budget, and also what does communication between SGA and the retriever look like now, like moving forward?
I think your latter question will be a conversation for Julia, Raj, and whomever to figure out moving forward.
It's a conversation for really good to figure out, or at the very least, both of us figure out, because, like I said, we you just sent us an email. That's not really communication.
No, wholeheartedly agree. And that's because I had made an agreement with the speaker and the chair of finance board that tonight would be first proposal. And I caught wind of the retriever reserve account on Friday, which is why there were amendments when I sent the email out. So I do apologize and I own up to that. That happened. This is a proposal. Nothing is passing tonight. There's no legislation. And
I do apologize to interrupt you, but it's really hard for me to hear that you heard wind of that of such a large amount of money Friday night. Sent us the, I think, called and sent us the email either Friday or Saturday, and have already made such extensive plans that can only operate or could only fiscally happen mathematically based off the money that you've done as investment. That just doesn't seem. It's hard for me to believe that. I'm sorry. I apologize for interrupting you, but I do think that's something that I needed to make sure was said before. It seems like you guys are getting ready to disperse.
Okay. So Miriam, the first part of your question, when it was the other university co-sponsorships and stuff like that, Carly and I had one-on-one conversations with the directors of those places. We talked about what FY19 funding was. We asked how was the money spent? Was all the money spent? How was SGA involved in the spending of this? Are there plans to make sure that this program still exists next fiscal year? And then we talked to them about, does it make sense? What dollar amount makes sense for next fiscal year? And we came to a mutually agreeable number together.
By directors, what do you mean? Because if they're like, I guess, like presenting completely different numbers, like how could that information be?
What do you mean?
So like they said that they had what, like 117,100.
This would be the last answer.
117,
including the conversation.
117, $1,000. So which directors did you speak to, and like I don't know.
So my 134 number that I was referencing for the Retrieve Reserve account, I also got from Dave Royer, and I got that I think this first or second week of February, just to ask about what their account balance was, and I got SUB's and SGA's balances at that date as well.
All right.
Can I say one last thing that has no question to it?
Fine.
Okay. So first up, I want to thank everyone in the room for coming out. I have never seen this many people come out for an SGA budget ever before. I know. I've seen people for student activity, but that's different. I think that I think we have a forum open for feedback for a reason. I think we're having a town hall for a reason. I'm not trying to approach this in a, I have a big stick and I'm trying to ruin everything. I'd like to have conversations with people. I apologize if this came across in any kind of way. It was not intended for at all. We have really been trying to build relationships with people. But I had a deadline set with the speaker and the chair of the finance board that we would make our first presentation tonight and tomorrow night. Life happens sometimes that nothing's perfect. And people aren't perfect either. I hope we give each other some grace as well. So, yeah, that's my last thought on that.
All right, great. All right, so that concludes the budget. So that went a lot longer than was planned, and I mean a lot longer. So with that, we're going to do a vote with Senate, and there's one thing that we do need to do today, and that would be the UMBC Plan of Organization, which is going to be done by Brenda. But other than that, do you guys want to table the rest of the agenda for next meeting?
How long do you think that would take?
Okay, so we have two SLs, which are probably 5 minutes each, and then the E and F will probably take a total of 5 minutes together.
Yeah, I have no problem. I think just kind of moving through stuff as long as everyone's okay with that.
I'm cool with that.
General consensus on that.
We're going to take a vote.
Yeah.
Right, before you end, we have a quick question. It's on what is this student learning and democratic accountability thing? I don't think a lot of people really know what that is?
We can include the budget. You can talk to Colin about that afterwards. All right. All right. So we're gonna. Do we want to take the 10-minute break, or just want to keep going? And we're gonna also. So first, we're gonna vote on whether or not we're just gonna table everything. So all senators, for tabling.
Tabling as in not doing it.
As in not doing everything except for the plan of organization, because we didn't do that. Okay, so we have 4 of 9, so we're going to continue. And then all senators for taking a 10-minute break.
Okay.
All right, so next we're going to get into the Brenda amending the plan of organization. Okay.
Y'all and 4 of y'all agree to table this video. So is it about like majority or no? Because that has to be pointed out. It's not
based on.
Hey Jared, I'm sorry. I'd like to point out that there's 9 of y'all, but Kai isn't here, so that was like split halfway.
Oh, that's true.
So how do you want to continue this?
I think we go by majority. So
yeah, so you're split evenly. So it's, I guess, is it up to you?
Okay.
So, technically, you do not have to.
Okay. So 4-3, and we are.
So it's 4-3.
Okay. So it's 4-3, so we are taking this right. Okay. All right, so then we'll move right into the amendment to the budgetary policy.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's the organization. Sorry.
4 was for it.
This will be SL35.
Thanks for coming. I know where I think everyone's going to call it
I have to speak to you after this.
I'm sweating.
Hi, hello. Here we are. Okay, so the plan of organization is what UMBC uses to maintain shared governance on campus. You all know what that is. So this is legislation to amend that plan of organization that all of the other senates at UMBC also looked over and passed already.
Passed. Okay. We got introduced to every other senate except for us and the professional staff senate. So the ones that have seen it, so that would be non-exempt staff senate, faculty senate. Faculty senate said no, and GSA. GSA said yes. Faculty senate said no. Non-exempt staff senate said yes.
Yeah. Now it's here. And it's I'm sorry.
You need a majority passage with at least 1 student senate voting in the affirmative.
Okay. Okay. All right. Yeah.
Can I just ask, what are the highlights here? What are like the main points for changing other than what kind of yes?
Right now. Okay, so the first thing up at the top there basically says that if any representative of the USC that normally goes isn't able to go, the representative can appoint someone from their respective Senate's executive body to go in their place and also vote there in their place. So for us, because the Senate doesn't exactly have an executive body, that's the SGA steering committee. So it's the executive board and the leadership of Senate and the finance board. So that makes up that steering committee. And then the second part, I think basically just outlines the reports that various shared governance committees would send to USC at various times. I think it simplifies that. Is it? Any questions about that? No?
So guys?
Yeah. Words. Give me a second.
Are you trying to pass it?
No, I'm trying to say words. So the key point of this is that it's just giving power to, in place of, if that person can't show up, it just gives the person that's stepping in for them the power to make the vote in their place.
It gives them voice and vote.
Got it.
Yes. Yeah.
So where is it outlined that the person that's or the person that comes to like I guess like step in for that person is appointed by the person who's being absent?
Right there, the representative may appoint for the Senate's executive body or the SGA's steering committee.
May appoint?
Yeah.
Is
So
this
like
an
if
issue of
Holland can't go, he would be like, okay, Zane, since you're on the SGA steering committee, can you go in my place? And then Zane would be like, cool.
So is it possible for us to like edit this at all?
Nope.
Because may appoint is ambiguous, and I think that's where the issue lies.
We cannot edit this at all.
Oh, okay. So I'm a no.
Yeah, so this double period here, was that a pacing issue?
Probably. Grammar
There are
issues
a
are
bunch
fine.
of typos in this, but the intention was what's there.
Alright. So could I ask why this did not pass 5%? Are we free to that information?
Say what?
Do we know why this did not pass the other side?
Faculty Senate?
Yes.
Don't know.
Okay.
Also, it requires a 2/3 majority.
Yeah. Yeah, motion to vote.
Are we through our discussion period?
Is there anyone else?
I have a point to make.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, because with your concern, Mary, I think also with the may appoint thing, I think in the absence of this amendment, there is no language saying that someone else can come in and vote. And so that in the absence of this amendment, not to say that it can be a better one, if it has to go back through, I think for the next year or so, there's no way for anyone else to come in and have a vote, of which there are, what, 7 members. So if anyone, like for example, faculty senate has not been able to attend because of time conflicts with their president and vice president, which is part of why this amendment is being made. So we've lost the faculty senate vote whenever this is being made. Or are we sure?
So Francis wants.
Yeah, without the amendment, if anyone can't make it, that vote is gone.
Okay.
With the amendment, someone can submit.
Yeah, I don't really have a problem with this at all. I think this is sort of like a useful amendment, and like without it, there's it's like what's that? It's like low risk, high reward. Like there's I don't think there are any bad circumstances that come from this. Like somebody can just be put in, like Brandon subbed in by the committees or by the senates to serve on the committee, and there's no harm that really comes from this. I don't see anyone usurping their power or anything. I feel like even if they did things to be made very quickly, they should like not be good. So I don't really see a big problem with this. This is sort of like, in my opinion, kind of very like a little trivial kind of thing that I think can be passed fairly easily.
I mean, I'm not too familiar with like certain conventions of like voting and this, but may appoint seems like a suggestion, and that like it's very both like I don't know sussness from me. I don't think that that's like if somebody can, if they want to, appoint somebody from their like Senate body to like stay in their place like that. I don't know. You guys get what I'm trying to say? Or, yes, sir.
So what I'm hearing from you is that by saying may appoint, you're not obligated to.
Yeah.
And so if there's a vacancy, it might be like, that vacancy is fine. I don't have to do it, so I won't.
Mm-hmm.
But the alternative is currently they don't have that option, so no one can appoint a sub-in.
Mm-hmm.
And with this, they're allowing to. So by your concern being like, what if they don't? By not passing it, they can't anyways.
So it's not what if they don't. It's more so okay. So this is essentially saying that they may, as in they are like they can if they want to appoint somebody from their body, their like executive body, like as it stands currently, to vote in their place, right? So that's a suggestion. Like they can appoint somebody in their body, but I feel like if it was worded differently, we could mandate them to like sub in somebody from their body, if that makes any sense. You get what I'm trying to say?
Are you saying?
Yeah.
Are you saying that there's a room for interpretation that it's a suggestion that you pick from the executive body?
Yeah.
And that you can pick from anywhere, but you're supposed to pick from the body.
And that's problematic. Like especially when votes are like I don't know when we have like important votes like such as the what's it called? I don't think the gym credit had to do with like the university steering committee, but like if that was the case for that body, say, appointing anybody could have easily like swung the vote either way. If that makes any sense. So yeah, it's enough for me.
Can I listen
Yeah.
to that? So I hear what you're saying, but I think weighing the consequences of passing this versus not passing this, if this is not in place, you lose that vote completely, right? If it is in place, it's true that if someone isn't doing their job correctly, they're not going to appoint someone. That would be terrible, but assuming that they are adhering to this and appointing someone, then you get that vote. Whereas otherwise, it's gone completely, and there's no student voice on the USC, which is terrible.
Okay, so by it's gone completely, do you mean
This will be the final point.
Okay.
Unless there's somebody who hasn't spoken yet, there's something they need to say.
so by like gone completely, you're saying that there's like no way of like editing that like one term?
It's
and then,
possible that this is reintroduced with better wording,
Oh, but
but I
that's
think
like-
the chances of that are low when it's presented to you right now.
All right, Candace?
So, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you said this, Brandon, but currently, if a student who is appointed to the USC is not there, there's no student vote because nobody can replace them. This would say, Brandon's like, I have an exam. So who else is up? Carly, can you go to this, or whoever else? So at least if there's a vote, and the hope would be that those people are having a conversation about, Brandon, like, here's all the details, here's how I'm planning to vote for students on this. Because right now, if you don't go, nobody votes for students.
All right, so that was the final point. So if we want, we can continue, or we can bring this back up the next meeting, but
Can we make a
or we
motion
can
to vote?
make a motion to vote.
I make a motion to vote.
Second. All right, great.
That was not my question. You have to say, can you scroll up and then say, I move to
All right.
Come on, you guys think what's it yours? I move to SR 32. Second.
Nice. All right, great. So, number of senators for? Number of senators opposed?
Did you vote yes or no, or do you not vote?
Yes.
Okay, great. It's but like I mean it's better.
And then
Is it 8?
none abstaining, and then one not present. And with that, the motion passes.
Is it 9?
Yay. All right, cool. Okay, and now move to announcements. So first, one announcement. Wait, you can make an announcement.
So, real quick.
Okay, you go first. Go.
Anyways, with SGCs, for the new people coming in, I just want to make it like clear that now that you all are, or now that you all are assigned SGCs and I've introduced you all, the expectation is that you are now the point of contact for the SGC. So you're in charge of contacting the person, and you're trying to maintain the meeting times available. And if you cannot make your meetings, like that we're also paid to do, it is also your responsibility to be reaching out and finding other people to fill in for you. And I will do everything I can to help you through that process, but I just want to make sure you know that it's your responsibility.
Cool. So I have an announcement. So Scott is wants to organize Green Dot training. So I was just wondering, with a show of hands, which senators would be interested in doing Green Dot training? What Green Dot training is sexual assault training. So, is there anybody? Chad, you have anything else to say on that point?
So SGA tried to do Green Dot training last semester. The university lost water or power, one of those, and it's cut short. With everything going on with the Title IX investigation, I think we should step up as responsible leaders and show that we're willing to do the sexual assault training and set an example for the rest of the school. 3 hours?
Oh, it's like a day thing.
But it's not like, we don't have like a date for you. Just if you'd be interested, can I just have a show of hands? Patrick.
If we did it when the power went out, does it count?
It does, because we basically finished.
We never kept it in.
Yeah, there was about an hour and a half of content left.
Oh, this week.
I mean, didn't just come to the last hour?
Yeah, it's open
I don't
FYS.
think if you made it,
Yeah.
But, yeah.
especially if you already went, but I think the opportunity especially for other people to go.
Oh, no, that's fine. I just want to know
Yeah.
when I went, count.
I'm not kind of going, so I'm just getting names.
Yeah, who were the names? It was Brandon and Patrick.
It's also open to any FYS.
Yeah, why don't we just raise our hands again?
Yeah, thank you. Wonderful.
All right, you know a lot of people would be interested. All right, great. Any other announcements?
Probably, I don't think you need it.
Okay. Just tell me.
Okay, I did.
Okay. Anything else?
Print the sign sheet.
I did. It's on the whiteboard. That's another thing. Yeah, I put the sign-in sheet on the whiteboard. Just initial when you go.
Can you update the calendar, please? With office hours?
Oh, with everybody's office hours?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
SRCs are due Thursday. Please do them. SRCs are due Thursday.
Did you say email?
I did send an email out, reminding you all.
You will have to answer early.
It's like a really short question.
Okay.
Have you guys been using the officer sign at all?
Didn't even know there was a sign. What's the sign?
All right. Talk about that after we.
Okay, great. Just, I was just wondering.
So when that's for the live stream of like all of the charged people, about like election, and how they should vote, and put all their energy.
Oh, I literally said that.
Yeah.
I'm literally beyond 7
Yeah,
No,
so like put all that energy that you guys are doing into typing into voting.
No. Don't.
Or is that like,
No.
okay, well, yeah, I mean, that's okay, life goes on.
Patrick,
I am one of them, actually.
You want to use?
Are there any other announcements?
No, I'm watching.
No.
No?
No.
All right, great. And I adjourn this meeting.
Thanks for watching. We're here every Monday.
He was like,